The Great Southern Continent in Torrie and the Firebird is inspired a lot by the natural history of Australia, and I have kind of an interest in growing Australian plants, and these are some of them. I've got a bunya tree here, and this is a Tasmanian blue gum. And these are the two that Kokako runs into in this section of Torrie and the Firebird. One's very prickly, one's very smelly. Unfortunately, it didn't take long at all for the crowd to search the gum tree grove and pour down into the city looking for him, spreading more rumors as they went. It was Chief Magistrate Jabiru who saw Kokako as he trotted down a side street, wondering where a good place to hide might be. "There he is!" roared the magistrate. "Get him!" Kokako didn't see any watchman handy. If he had, he would have surrendered to them at once. At least if he were in jail, he'd be safe, and he would have a trial, and no one would be able to prove he'd done anything wrong. But he didn't think he was going to get a trial if the mob caught him. That's the thing about mobs. They stop being human and using their brains. They go into a mad frenzy, like sharks or crocodiles, and afterwards, people might be sorry, but then it's too late, and each person tries to make him or herself feel better by saying, "Everyone else was doing it." As though that's any sort of excuse. Makes me glad I'm not human. The crowd surged past the puffing, waddling magistrate. Again Kokako ran. He ran and ran and ran, with no idea where he was going, where he could go to be safe. Sweat poured down his face, stinging his eyes. His heart was pounding on the walls of his chest, trying to batter a way out. He had a stitch in his side, a horrible burning feeling in the muscles there, as if they simply couldn't stretch any more. Then he caught the toe of his sandal on an uneven stone and stumbled, landing on his hands and knees, skinning them on the rough cobbles of the street. He hardly noticed. Behind him, the mob roared like the waves on the shore. Kokako scrambled up and started running again. He dodged through the crowded market square, around pens of goats and sheep, tables of cheese, baskets of lemons, apples, figs, and onions, jugs of wine and olive oil, pails of cut flowers, and rows of little trees in pots, which were very fashionable for rooftop gardens that year. People turned to watch him go, curious, but they didn't try to stop him, until somewhere behind him a voice shouted, "Get that boy! He's the one who burned down the Oyon shrine! He's the one who destroyed the Oyon!" Kokako gulped down what was almost a sob, lowered his chin, and somehow forced his legs to move faster. "Vandal!" a man shouted almost in his ear, snatching at him. "Traitor!" a woman with a basket of eggs balanced on her head caught him by the arm. Kokako tore away and dodged around a stall where kebabs of garlicky mutton and eggplant on skewers roasted over a charcoal fire. His shoulder struck one of the thin poles holding up the stall's striped awning. He fell over, and so did the pole. The kebab seller yelled and flailed around under his fallen awning, trying to fight his way out. He struggled from beneath it, his enormous mustache bristling with anger, tripped over Kokako, and fell on top of the woman with the eggs. Her basket went flying. Kokako watched as the eggs soared through the air, tumbling, falling, exploding like slimy little bombs as they hit the cobblestones. For a moment he almost wanted to laugh, but the awning was smoldering where it had fallen onto the charcoal brazier and the roasting kebabs. It burst into flame with a quiet whoop sort of noise, and Kokako quickly crawled away between the legs of the gathering crowd while they were all distracted. When he thought he was safe, he stood up and found his legs were shaking so badly he could barely walk, let alone run. "Where'd that boy go?" he heard someone shouting. "Look what he did to my stall!" "Over there, that way!" "What'd he do?" "He's the one who destroyed the Oyon! Lock him up and throw away the key! Take him to the harbor and throw him in the sea!" Kokako didn't even have the breath to whimper. He put his head down and forced his shaking legs to run. Then someone grabbed his arm again, and he didn't have the strength to fight. He just sagged where he was. "Quick!" said a voice. "Take this!" And someone thrust a big clay flower pot into Kokako's arms. It had several spiky-needled little bunya trees planted in it, and it was heavy. He almost dropped it. "And this!" The person, a foreign girl several years older than Kokako, shoved another flower pot at him. This one had a tall blue gum sapling in it. The long, leathery leaves smelled a bit like, a tomcat. Trying to balance the pots in his arms, Kokako ended up with his face full of reeking leaves. "No, don't hold it down lower," said another, much deeper voice. "You want to hide your face. That's the point." Kokako couldn't see who was speaking at all. "That's better," the girl said. "Come on, I'm hiring you to carry my shopping back to my ship." Kokako sputtered. His mouth was full of blue gum leaves, which he didn't enjoy, not being a koala, and he could feel his knees trembling with exhaustion and the weight of the pots. Someone patted him on the back. "Don't look around," said that deep voice again. "Just walk." And somehow Kokako managed to walk. He didn't look around. He followed the girl, staggering under the flower pots and peering out through the leaves. She was quite a tall girl, with a long black braid, and she kept putting her hand to the hilt of her battered old sword, as though she were more nervous than she wanted to admit. She looked around at him once and smiled. Her eyes were bright in her sun-browned face, one blue, one green. "Keep walking," she said quietly. "Here they come." And suddenly there was a great mass of people around them, all yelling and clamoring. "He went that way!" "No, back up the hill." The kebab seller tugged at the girl's sleeve. Miss, did you see a boy run by here? A nasty, evil-looking boy, a real villain." "Captain," the girl corrected him politely. "It's Captain, not Miss. And I haven't seen anybody run past me." "Back up the hill, then. Search every doorway." The whole crowd went pushing and jostling back the way they had come. When they were out of sight, Kokako took a deep, trembling breath. The girl took the pot of bunyas away, leaving him carrying the tree that smelled like cat pee. But he wasn't going to complain. It had hidden his face completely from the mob. "You'd better come back to Shrike and tell us what that was all about," she said. Us? Kokako wondered. The only person he could see was the girl, the captain. But there had been that other voice, and the hand that had patted him on the back. He decided not to think about it. Sand goblins and rock folk and a sorcerer. Why not an invisible person, too? Right then, invisible people were far less worrying than visible people who wanted to throw him into the harbor. Kokako took a firmer grip on the potted tree and trudged after the girl, the captain. He was almost sure he heard soft feet pattering alongside.